28th of Tevet, Hemshech Samech Vav, page Kuf Daled.
So we saw the Gila, the Tainuk Ha'atzmi, Shemitzad Atzmas Eirin Tzei. We saw that there are two madrigas in that. Tainuk Ha'atzmi, Shebo Al Chaponim, what we call in feeling and an appreciation Mitzad Makabli. But that's what we call murgash. It's felt and aware on the part of the makablim. And then we see there's a tainug ha'atzmi, mamish ba'atzmusi is borach she'ena bo b'murgash. Both of these madrigas in tainug are found in the kiyum of the mitzvahs and the limud ha'torah nowadays, but the behelim, Mesuyam and Liyosi, they're going to be Begoloi. So there'll be the two madrigas of Liyosi Glove, Tainug Abur B'Murgash, we saw, and then there'll be the Tainug Abilti Murgash. But that's Mitzad Atzmus Ein Sei. So we saw that there'll be in the Kiyum HaMitzvahs, Aksho, there's a gilu of the tainug ha'atzmi habor b'murgash, but it's a inim v'nela mi'odom b'ikar, and halidei he's mekayim the mitzvahs, he's gilu prepares that which will, or that gilu ha'tainug which will be miskale the Hasid, and we call that the union of taimei ha'mitzvahs or taimei ha'torah, the union from limud ha'torah. And we saw that it was a tough almin, the ksufin, the yatun tzadikaya liyosid. We saw that the tzadikim are going to be yoirish. They're going to inherit 400 worlds. Kisufin is the word kisuf, was from the word kesef, the basic root word is the word kesef, but that means sewer. And the word kesef has gotten itself also the idea of longing or what you might call or fulfillment. Well, that's what we see that Yankov Avinu, Ylovin said to Yankov Avinu, Niksafto Levesavir, you're wronged and you want to go back to your father's house. Therefore we see that the union from kesef causes a great deal and calls out a tainug by b'nei odom. B'pashtus, the union from kesef is considered a dovashel tainug, because the union from kesef is connected with the union of tainug. And kisufin is more the longing and the yearning to go higher the whole time in the tainug. And we saw that that's going to be inherited by the tzaddikim, the Osid Lowe. And we saw that that was the Shurish, the Derech Nafila, the Abba Meyes Isha that came with the Esav against Yankiv Avinu. And it's also the Abba Meyes Kesef, what Avram Avinu paid for the Maras HaMachpelas. He paid Ephraim Hachiti, paid him Abba Meyes Kesef. Which said he got good for it went out. It was how they say it was good on the market. It went out and it was acceptable in business. Is so it's mavur from the Alter Rebbe and that's also got to do with these tough almin. The kisufin with Avram Avinu was Maramis, the whole union of these 400 worlds of Kesef, which are going to be Liyosid. So man, near at that particular time, Ephraim, what was from the Goyim, he had a certain achiza and a certain gear in these inyanim, just like the Abba Me'esh Ish of Esau had a certain power and a certain pull in the world. But Esau has man. Of Eliosid, it's written that Ephraim's going to give it all back. He's going to give back the money. And that means that he'll give back the pneumius of the Indian, and it'll all go back into these elements of Tainuk, Leosid Love, and then the Tzadikim, that will be Yerush, the whole 400 kesef that was given to Ephraim, because it will be then a high madriga of Giloy HaTainuk, and it'll only be shayach the Indian from Yartun Tzadikayo. What Yartun means they'll be Yerush. In other words, they'll be given it by way of Yerusha or Balav Davke, but they'll earn it in the simple sense, because it's a tremendously high madriga. But we saw that nonetheless, that's still, since it's called Almi Kisufin, it's still Oineg HaMurgash, because it'll be appreciated and felt by the Nivroim, the Osid, in the sense of a Tainuk, in Taimei HaTorah and Taimei HaMitzvahs. So I think that's basically where we're holding, isn't it? We're holding by that sentence, or do we go a bit further? I must put it slipped my mind, but I think we're holding better there. Even though this Einig of the Abba Me'esh Almin Diksufin, that the Tzadikim are going to be Yiddish, Ein a Bob or Mulkav B'chinas Chochma V'Tam. It doesn't come mamish into the Indian of Chochma V'Tam, like we understand the Indian of Chochma and understanding. The B'chinas Helem Ha'achmi, the Chochma, Ein ze B'chinas Tam V'Chochma, Ki im B'chinas Oineg. Commission is Borleel Dibba Masra V'Yetze Yanki. That was in the previous Maimah that Rebbe was Mavaya. The Akshov Aishgalas Mizeh Ubchinas Sichli. Will be etem upchinas oinek mamish, umash pnimius abba upnimius atik mamish. Now, as we've seen on numerous occasions, the word tam has in itself two understandings, two pirushim. Aleph, it can mean a reasoning or a sichli, a tam. Do you know a tam for this? Can you give a tam for what you say? The Tami Hamitzvahs, that's inyanim of reasoning and understanding behind the inyan. The second pirush in Tam means taste. That's a reference to the inyan, or the pirush, pnimi in the word Tam, which means tainuk, until tainuk on a very high level. So there was the inyan of Chochmah, how it is in the Indian from Chochmas HaTorah, has in itself these two inyanim. That mitzad the Gilui of Chochmas HaTorah, we see when we learn Torah, we understand inyanim in Seichel. But like we pointed out, that together with that Seichel, there's also a tremendous fulfillment and a tremendous Gilui of Oineg. If somebody learns the inyanim, Yerushalayim, Elef, then there's a Gilui of Oineg. That Oineg is hidden, that what he actually understands and what he appreciates. But Koichais, Shaloi, that's the Indian of Seichel. And the Indian from Tam, which is the Indian Pnimi of the purest Tam, well, that's the Indian of the Oineg. Well, that's a very high madrege in the Indian from Oineg. Like we said, it's the Oineg Mitzad Atzmusei, even though it's Baal B'Murgash, it's a very high level in the Indian from Oineg. So therefore said the Rebbe, that's the difference between the Indian from Torah, how it is nowadays, and the Indian from Torah, how it will be Liossi. So when we learn Torah nowadays, then it comes in an Eifon from Chochmah V'Tam. Even though mitzat the very essence of that inyan, then the other word tam really means the inyan from Oineg, which is not inyan from Chochmah V'Tam. And that's what he explained in the previous Maimah. However, Achshor Aishgalas Mizeh Ubchinas Sichli. The Gilui from that, when you learn what is Begodui, is the inyan of our rational and reasoning inyan, a inyan from Seichel. But the word Sichli means reasoning and understanding. That's what you get Begodui. Avol Bietzem inside the pneumius, like you just said in the previous sentence, really it's not a inyan from Chochma, no, it's a inyan from Oinig. Uprinas Oinig mamish, umasha pneumius abba, hu pneumius atik mamish. That means to say that in the inyan from Abba, which is Chochma, well, Chochma is, as we've seen already, that's the beginning of all the Giluim and Seder Asfiras, and eventually in the Seder of the Elamas, hidden inside that, and even like we saw, that the Rabbeinu Chaim tells that he doesn't understand how that works. It's a inyan which is L'mayla Miseichel. The Pneumius Abba comes down all the way and joins into Pneumius Atik comes all the way down, joins into Pneumius Abba, which means that when you learn Torah, what is Begolui is the Seichel of in the Pneumius of that. Since it's Chochma, and it's seen from Pneumius of Chochma, which is Torah, then hidden in that, and what is behind it really is Pneumius Atik. In other words, that the Eibishter gives us this unbelievable gift that he makes it possible for us to experience that through the inyan of our kochas, which is Seichel, of a hidden in that, and Ikar, that's the inyan of his Tainuk. In other words, that it's the Eibishter's plan and his Kavanah and his Tainuk in making all of these inyanim possible, the inyan from Gilu HaSfiras and Gilu HaOlamas. Really, the whole time, the whole pneumius of that is his tainuk. What the Eibishter is misanik kavioho, and that's pneumius atik. But he hides that inside the inyan from pneumius abba. So Liosid, that's going to be begolo, the pneumius of Abba, which is his time tainuk, or that will be begolo, and that will be the ikar. Now, however, when we learn in order to make us shaykh, and we should be able to join up with the whole inyan, it becomes an initial seichel. Therefore, nowadays when we study Torah, we experience the sichli, but that's only the chitzonius of it. But pneumius, and that's what he uses the word etzem. The very essence of it is the oinig mamish, and that's the union of those two factors, pneumius abba and pneumius atik. So what we're doing, we're taking the lower side of it. We're taking the inyan Abba, or be it Pneumius Abba, after we're learning Pneumius HaTorah. However, the Ikka we take is the time how it is Seichel. But hidden in that, the Ikka Pneumius is the time how it is Oinig of the Eibishter. And Liosid, that's what's going to be that's what's going to be Begolui. And we can understand then why it is that even though Torah is Seichel, and learning Torah is a inyan from Seichel, but not the Ika is the Seichel. The Seichel is only a medium, it's like a handle which we're given to enter the Ika of what Torah really is. And what Torah really is the Eibishter's tainuk, it's the Eibishter's fulfillment, kaviyot, and his purpose in the whole creation. And that's Pneumius Abba, Pneumius Atik. When you learn Torah, the Seichel is only the one end of it, as you might say. And we're given the feeling, like we explained already, that when you learn Torah, you feel this deep inner feeling of tainug and some very profound pleasure of the soul, and even higher than the pleasure of the soul. But that's all behelim li'esh ato, but be'etzem, that's what it really is. On the Yosid Love, it's going to be Gilui, the Pneumius Atik, and not the Pneumius Abba so much. And so therefore he says, Mikol Mokim, Hu Bo B'Murgash, even the way it is going to be, Liosi, the Gilui of that Atik, but it's still going to be in a oven that will be able to experience it evenly, Liosi. And that's what we see, that the whole inyan of Atik came down to be a form of a Mutza, as we learned earlier. It entered the inyan from Chochma to make some kesher with the inyan of the Nivroim. So nowadays we take the lower end, as you might call it, of the Mamutza. We take the Chochma part of it. But hidden inside that is the Pneumius Atik. The Yosid, it's going to be the other way around. The Yosid will take the Ika, the Pneumius Oineg, and the Chochma will be just, as you might say, Nikla Vaboto in the Ika inyan, which will be the Oineg, the Yosid lower. Therefore, the old Rebbe brings in the famous Geras HaKodesh in Tanya, in chapter 26, so that's Communion Shem Havaya. He brings out that at the end, that Liosid will all just know all the inyanim of Nigla the Torah, all the dinim and all the things which need to be understood in Torah, that will all be just understood, how to call it, b'muskal rishon, by all Yidden. They'll just know automatically what all the different piskei dinim are, and the Ikka will be the Esikin Pnimius Atmis HaTorah, what that's the Inina Oinig, as he schreibt the Alter Rebbe over there. And that's what the Rebbe says here, that nowadays it's a Gilui HaSeichel. Hidden in that is the Oinig. Lios, it's going to be the other way. The Gilui HaOinig will be the Ikka, and hidden in that will be, but the Mamera will know automatically all the Inyanim HaShiklim. And therefore, that's the Indian, what Lios, it's going to be Pnimius Atik Begilui Mamish, but it will be B'murgash. In other words, we'll be able to experience that and feel that oinig, even though it's going to be on a very high madrega. So, Gamma Shoma B'medrash Rabbo, that's what we brought down earlier. That when the Eibster gave the Torah to us, he said that Oisi Atem Loichim, you are taking me. And the famous Moshe we brought down from the Medrash, that normally when a seller sells to a purchaser, then there's two parties. And the article changes hands, as the seller, and then there's a purchaser. And what the purchaser gets is the article. He takes it from the reshus of the seller. And here, the Eibster said he sold the Torah, he sold his own self together with it. And therefore, when you purchase, you're taking me, myself. So the Rebbe said, "What? How can you say that?" Yeah, Al Yidei Torah shezo b'chinas ha'tainov ha'atzmi, the atzma saying save, k'moi shebo b'chinas chochma de Torah. So the chiddush of that medrash is not liasi. You took the Torah that way, but from the very moment you got the Torah, you already had me together with it. However, that's in two different stages. That's the way it is now. And then it'll be how it is liasid love. That now you're taking the Eibishter's etzemataynu, but that's him, as it were. You're taking that al yedei the inen of the chochma from Torah. Aber liasid, then it's going to be that you'll take him kipshutei, and the chochma of Torah will be automatic, as you might say. It'll be nichlal v'botl. Therefore, he says that's the union of oisi atem loichim. You, as the purchasers, are taking me al yidei haTorah, shezo b'chin tainu v'atzmi. The oisi, the me part of it means the tainu v'atzmas of atzma, saying say k'moishe bo b'chinas chochma de Torah. How it comes at least into the union from chochma, so therefore it will be understood and at least felt the oinig. Liasid. In other words, it'll still be a aware and felt tainug, albeit on a very high level. So that's the union of Pnimius Abahu, Pnimius Atik, both how it is now and how it'll be Liasid. Liasid low. However, we saw that there's even higher than that. Because that's how it's going to be Liasid. It's still with an awareness and an experience of the Inyanim, how they came in a time which came down and revealed itself in some way to the Nivroim, and therefore unites with them. And therefore we are purchaser, we play a leading part in deal. However, mizehu p'chinas ha'taina v'atzmi, k'moishu p'chinas helem v'atzmi de ein seif mamish, sheloi bo b'chinas helem v'atzmi de chochma. She'ena bo b'murgish klal, gam loi b'taimei ha'torah u mitzvah. So here's the Rebbe a Kiddush Odyotem. He said that when after the Gilui of Liasid, after the Gilui of Moshiach, it's mashma, the Rebbe learns here that it's two different periods or two different times or stages. Even though the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach got all ha'oreh. But I get to that it's must be in some other places, and maybe it's going to happen together. It'll all just sort of everything will just blow at tremendous speed. All these different madrigas will be had imasheni or had miyad achrei hasheni. Over here, the Rebbe Rashab here in Samech Vav, he learns it's like two separate stages. That after this whole union of the Gilui of the etzem. Tainug, how it is in Chochmah, how it comes into Torah, which makes it experienceable. There's going to be another Aliyah, Odyotem is there, where literally all the Nivron will go up into the Tainug of the Eibishter, and they'll be just in the Pshita, so they ain't safe, without really feeling anything for them. cells, all they will feel is only, well, I don't know if they'll feel anything, but they'll just be involved and be oile and swept into the atzmus of Hashem Himself, without even the inifant Tami HaTorah HaMitzvahs, or all these Tamim, I feel the Yoinig in Torah or Mitzvahs, that's also going to be like a, how do you call it, Adova HaMurgish VaMuvan, just on its own. It's not going to be the Ikar. Okemoi b'chinas atzmus ein seif shaloi bo liyei b'chinas keser v'atik. Like we saw that higher than atik is ein seif mamish, what we call etzem amatzil, that didn't even enter into any mamutza. It's completely lamaila. Okemoi b'chinas atik atzmoi shaloi bo adayin b'chinas chochma. Or if we go down into our levels, to a lower level, we saw that Pnimius Atik, Pnimius Abba, it comes down into Chochmah. But if we take Atik before it came into Chochmah, then it's not a Mamutza at all. It just depends on which level you're talking. So he said, Harei Ena B'Pnimius Mamutza, it doesn't enter into the whole connection with the Nivroim, Klal. Ve'enu Shayak Tfisa Klal, Gam Li B'Pnimius Shlila D'Lo Yisaseh. And you can't literally grasp or have any tfisa in that level nowadays, and it's much better evenly also it'll be just a inifan aliyah or bittel into that madriga, because you can't have any tfisa klal, even not through the union of the mitzvahs loy saseh, what we saw that they're a mile of shlila, they're like negation, they're not anything which it comes in the form of a positive action or a positive amshocha on the part of the mensch, and we saw that you can at least reach pnimius abba who pnimius atik through the shlila of the mitzvahs loy saseh. Of in this level, which is going to be liosid, it's not shayir that you would come to any activity or any pu'ula on the part of the mensch lamata, that through that we could say he's able to reach such a madrega. No, after the aliyah into the helam ha'atzmi, the chochma into the madrega, how it does come into some pnimius atik, does come into pnimius abba. Well, that's going to be a tremendous aliyah in its own right. Then there'll be a further aliyah into the union of atzmus ein seif. And we have no way of really describing what that'll be, because it doesn't come in our term. We understand at the moment only unionim which have some, what we call here, the union of an achiza, or how do you call it? They come into some form of muragash. We feel, we understand, we appreciate. Even in the union from oinig, we appreciate something, we feel it. Or something that's beyond our whole value of knowledge and feeling. It's hard for us to know how it's going to be, Liosid, and that's going to be an everlasting yichud with the Ein Seif, which will go on ad la Neitzachim. So once again, we'll see that it's hard to say to a certain extent, even in that aliyahs, but then there's going to be a certain point where there won't be any aliyahs anymore, according to the Lashon here. You'll just sort of be in a state of absolute unity with the atzmas, and it'll kilo never alter, as you might say. And I have to say, what sort of an existence is that going to be? Take it, we'll see about that. So therefore, he says, "Kamoi kein hu b'chinas tainu v'atzmi, kamoi shu b'chinas makif hanelam v'atzmusei mamish." It's not in a form of revelation or derivation, but not even in the highest madregas of the shurish of chokhmah, like we saw. How the atzmus gives rise to the possibility of chokhmah, even it's lamaila and completely beyond that. Harei eno bo b'chinas murgash klal. He said, it doesn't come into any form of normal awareness that we're aware of now, of what we're aware of nowadays. So that's going to be Gora Piladikzach, and that needs a little bit of a sort of careful definition, as much as we can, because it's much better we don't have any real hasoga or appreciation or ability to imagine what that's going to be like. But however, once we've dealt with it a little bit, then maybe we can say a few words as to what would be, how could we picture or imagine this whole union. So therefore the Rebbe said, V'zehu aliyah habeis. This is the second aliyah, She'il and Neshamas Yisrael Liosi. That it's going to be Liosi, two aliyahs. Now this is mashma not just at the time of Moshiach, nor even after Tchias HaMeisim. It's mashma that in that gufa there's going to be like two big aliyahs, or two great states. One which will lead up to the Adeh, and then after those aliyahs, according to at least the opinion which is brought here, there won't be any further aliyahs, because it won't be shaykh any more aliyahs, having reached already the atzmas. The Hine, says the Rebbe, v'zeu aliyah habeis, or that aliyah into the atzmas atainog of the Eibishter, how he is even l'mailat from to be any source of chokhmah b'klal, that's the second aliyah, which will be for Yidden Liyosid. The Hine, gam Liyosid, yiyu b'chinas aliyahs. Even Liyosid, and when we say here Liyosid, we mean not only be a Mesa Mashiach, but as we said, even after Tchias HaMeisim. Akameisha Kosov, it's a pasuk in Yeshaya Novi where he talks about the whole of the Geula, as the one on Yeshayahu Novi, he's called the Navi HaGeula. What he talks a tremendous amount from chapter Mem and further. He mentions it earlier, but from chapter Mem and further, right through to about chapter 65 or even more, it's only about the Inyan of the Geula in Yeshaya Novi. So he says in chapter Mem, where he begins to talk openly about the Inyan of the Geula, he says, "V'koivei Hashem yachlifu koyach," that those who hope for the Eibishter, koivei Hashem yachlifu koyach, they will change and swap their power. In other words, that they'll gain completely new koyach. If you lachlif means to swap, means you give away what you had and then you get something new. Yalu eva kanshorim, they will elevate limbs like eagles. They state in a pasuk in chapter Mem Yeshaya Anovi, they will literally elevate wings. The word eva here means a wing. They will elevate wings like eagles. In other words, that they will gain new koyach, and then they will fly with that new koyach like eagles. In other words, here we're only describing the actual flying, the actual pa'ula of even an eagle. If he flies a whole day, then he gets vermatted, then he gets tired, and he can't koyach to fliehen. Therefore, we say here, first of all, that they will get completely new koyach. The koivei Hashem, they will get completely new koyach, and then they will be in a overfer yalu eva kanshorim, they'll fly like eagles, but they won't tire out like the eagles would normally tire out. But since they've changed their koyach altogether, then they will fly without weariness. That's a pasuk in Yeshaya. Okameisha Omer Azal, it's a Gemara Masechta Sanhedrin in Perik HaChelik, but that's a famous Perik in Sanhedrin, where he talks all about the inyanim of Mashiach and Geula with great arichas. Oisen elef shona she'osid HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'chadish es oilomei tzadikim ma hein osim. In those 1,000 years, what the Eibishter is gonna in the future renew his whole world. Tzadikim ma hein osim, what are the tzadikim gonna be doing? So it says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu oisel lehem kanofayim kaneshorim. The Eibishter will make them wings like eagles, v'shotim al pnei hamayim, and they will be flying, or literally almost like swimming low over the water, and they'll be sort of shooting over the water for the whole of that 1,000 years. That's what the tzaddikim will be doing. So what is the Gemara referring to? Because the Gemara said a little bit earlier there, it said that there's 6,000 years that the world is the way it is now, and then there's going to be the Elef HaShvi, there's going to be a 7,000. But then the world's going to be different than what it is now. And it's much more that then the world's going to be like what it is now. It's going to be destroyed, or not destroyed in a bad way, but it's going to change in a way that what would be considered now like desolate or destroyed. And that's going to be another world where there's going to be a lot of water, and so what are all the tzaddikim that they got up at Tchias HaMeisim, what are they going to be doing? So they'll be flying with these wings that the Eibster will give them all over the face of the water, and that's what they'll be doing. So you might say, well, what was that? And how come that's going to last 1,000 years? What is the Indian per se? So that's what the Gemara says. It's going to be 1,000 years of Chad Charu. It's going to be like 1,000 of destroying, destruction, the previous 6,000 of the 6,000 years of the creation. And yet, nonetheless, as we saw the other night in the Shur Flori, which I don't know if anybody remembers anything of, but nonetheless, we saw that Elef HaShvi, or that 7,000, is a very big time. It's going to be a very big Gilui, a very big Madrega, because that's when the Abe's going to pay the Emes Sachar. Remember, we had a whole thing about it in the Shur Flori. So, obviously, big things are going to be happening the most. So what is this in the wings and the tzaddikim flying on the water? So the Rebbe says, V'hainu, achar sheyovoyu liyosid lebchinas ataynu va'achmi shebe'elem ha'chochma, shezeo bchinas taimei toira, the bchinas zu nikra l'chadesh es oilome. First of all, there's going to be a level where we saw that the Tainuk, the Eibster, is going to be in feeling, in Murgash. So it's going to come in the union from Taimei Torah. And we saw that the way we have it now is understanding, but Lios, it's going to be the union from Tainuk. But nonetheless, it's Tainuk and Murgash in the union from the reasoning or the inner secrets of the Torah, and that particular level, that's going to be like immediately they reach, or maybe even prior to them reaching the Elef HaShvi, that's for sure that they'll have already that level. They've already gone up into that particular level, because that's already still the Tainung that's going to have a certain link with the Indian of the Tamei HaTorah, what that means, the Tainung Shabbat. What that particular level is called L'chadesh es oilomai, to renew his whole world. So he said, why is it called to renew his whole world? Because you only renew something which you've already got already, but you renew it means that you just add to it, or in some way you improve it or make it better. That's what's called to renew. The Rebbe said, really, even the Aveda Bismana, the Sheishes Alfishnin, the Tzaddikim have already had that level, but they haven't had it Mamish Bukoli, like we just saw. You have one end of it, but not the complete Shleimus of it. And so when there'll only be the time of Gilit Tchias HaMeisim, then that's for sure that they'll already have that level, and that'll be called L'chadesh Esoi Ilomei, that they will come to the union of the Atzmas HaTainu, how it is in the Taimei HaTorah. He said, who the Chadish Ilomei, Yesh Loima, if Yesh Dugmoso Gam Aksho. Why do you call L'chadesh, to make new his world? Because there's also a certain trace of that even now. Bo'elam, Dugmoso Gam Aksho Bo'elam, in the world. Who Masha Pnimius, Abba Pnimius, Atik, like we sort of, when you learn the Pnimius of the Torah and how it is in Chochmah and Abba, then you have a certain Gilui of Atik, but we saw that you don't have it. Mamish, is what you have is the Chochmah part of it. But now that we're talking about Tchias HaMeisim, you've just gone up into the higher level of the Mamutza. You've gone up into the Pnimius Atik part of it. So therefore, said the Rebbe, that's called L'chadesh Esoi Lomei, because there's a certain dogma to that. All you do is go up into the Pnimius. That'll be by Tchias HaMeisim, and that's called L'chadesh Esoi Lomei, Pnimius Atik. K'may kain b'plinus HaMamutza there, the Keser canal. We saw even higher than that. There was a Mamutza of Keser, which is a Mamutza to Oil Ma'atzilas. And this is a Mamutza between Pnimis Atik to Chochmah and eventually to the Nivroim. And therefore, they can have a certain kesher with that, even Bezeho Elam, the way it is Yeah. Now, but what is misgalit to these tzaddikim is l'chadesh eselom. Lochein mashi is galav in satayna v'achmi shebehelem de chochma. What it's still got to do with the inyan from Pnimius Abba, but it's a Pnimius Attic part of it, or that's called the Chadesh Eselom, because you've already had the one of it, all you've done is gone up into the higher, as it were, aspect of the Mamutza, and therefore that's called the Chadesh Eselom, and that's a tremendously high level, because you're already being even the Tainug God is in Torah, and the Atzmus Tainug, but it's come down through the Mamutza into Pnimius Abba, but really it's Pnimius Atik. He said, so that's one inyan. Then there's going to be another inyan. Once they already got that far, the Oz Tzadikim Maharin Oisim, what are the Tzadikim going to be doing? They've got already that, all as it were, that's already, as they say in Yiddish, that's already in Keshener, that's already in the pocket, that's already been achieved. And what are they going to do now? So he said, Hainu she Elohim Aliyah Oid. They're going to have a further Aliyah. Mashiyu Shotim Al Pnei Hamayim. They're going to be swimming or flying low with these wings over the Mayim. So what sort of Mayim? Mayim de Chochma. In other words, that they're going to be now higher than this inyan of Pnimius Abba, Pnimius Atik. They're going to be higher than the time that comes down into Chochma some way. And the tiny part of it they've already experienced. So what are they going to do now? They're going to go higher than the inyan from Mayim, which is Chochma. They're going to be flying freely over that level. Al Pnei Hamayim de Chochma, Bibchinas Makif Ha'achmi. That they're going to be in a much higher level. That's why it'll be above the water, and they'll be flying. And that's going to be the Shashui Ma'achmiyim, the Atzmus Ain't Safe Mamish. That's going to be like the tainug, or the plaything's tainug, as it were, inside the very essence of Hashem. Shaloi bo b'pchinas helem ha'atzmi de Chochma. But it doesn't come cloud into the whole union of Chochma. I feel the way Chochma is hidden inside the ain't safe mamish. It doesn't come, but it's purely inside Atzmusoi Yizbara. And like it's written, V'nichye lefonov. Now this is a pasuk in Hosea Hanovi, famous pasuk over there, in chapter Vav, I think it is in Hosea. But over there, he says, the Alter Rebbe's got a famous maimon in Torah on this pasuk. What it says, that Hosea tells, that Yichayenu miyomayim, Vayem Ashlishi Yikimenu V'nichye lefonov. How do you call it? He will make us live. He'll relive us, or bring us into life after 2 days. Yomayim, literally, that's what it means. Vayem Ashlishi, and on the third day he will stand us up. Yikimenu, elevate us, literally. V'nichye lefonov, and we will live literally in front of him, or we will live from him, how he is b'pnimius, live for now. It doesn't seem to somebody that's a little bit stuffy in here. Huh? Huh? You don't find that stuff. Well, if everybody's happy, then we'll go for it.
What, do you want the door open or something?
No, the door's finished. Well, maybe we could open a window, but I don't know.
We can open the window
and window's already open.
to get hot air.
Anyway.
I want a little bit of the dust on that.
For some reason the air doesn't want it, we should have a winter. I think that's boarded up, I don't know.
No, it's not. I feel the air.
Okay, good. Amamila says the Rebbe, that then is going to be an aliyah from Shatim al Pnei Hamayim, and that's going to be a makif of Shashuim Ha'atzmiyim, Shaloi bo b'chinas helem ha'atzmi de Chochma, doesn't klal enter the whole union of Chochma, like we saw V'nichye lefonov. So what it's brought down over there, Rashi brings down that the 2 days that the Abish is going to awaken us from 2 days is the two basic Bati HaMikdash, the 2 periods in history with the 2 Beit HaMikdashes. On the third day, he's going to elevate us, that is the binyan of the Beit HaMikdash Shlishi. Then, after that, Nichye lefonov, Fanov, we will live in front of Him. Our whole life will only be Him, as well. We'll live only in front of Him. That's how Rashi learns. And in Chassidus, it's not very far from that. Chassidus says, Chayenu miyomayim, is talking about the Golas. In other words, the two main Golas is the Yetzirah Migolas Mitzrayim, and then there are all the other Golas in the middle, and then there's going to be the final Yetzirah Miagolas, but that's taken from Miyad B'Iskalos Melech HaMashiach. But that's the 2 days, literally, that the Yebes will wake us up. And then on the Yom HaShlishi, that'll be like the time of Tchias HaMeisim. He will elevate us into a new level, and we will live Lifonov only from His Pnimius. We will live purely in the Pnimius of the Eibishter, and that is the expression V'nichyeh Lifonov. In other words, that our highest, that'll be a highest which will actually enter the body, but it will come from the Helem HaAtzmi of the Eibishter Himself, not the Helem HaAtzmi how He makes some room and allows there to be an appearance of a thing called Chokhmah, but Mamish B'Pchinas Pnimius V'Atzmas Ein Sei. Now, how can that be? How can we just say that a created entity, like a human or anything of the highest form that we can imagine within humanity, how can that possibly reach such a level? How can a little limited entity like a human being, even after all the milas of Tchias HaMeisim, how's it going to reach such a level? So the Rebbe says this is like what you might call a key line, like the how do they say, the pitch line. Ki liyes the neshamas Yisrael mushroshim b'pinat atzmius mamish shel hamayla mipinat chokhmah datoira gam b'shorosh harishoy. He said because the shoyrosh of Yidden, of neshamas Yisrael, is in that level, in the inyan of atzmius shemamish lamayla, even from the shorosh atzmi of chokhmah. That's what we see. The inyan of Bonim Tem Hashem Eloh Keichem like the Alter Rebbe Masbe. That's too much for you. It's too much. I don't want anybody to get a cold. Are you guys alright with it? Are you also cold? Are you alright? I don't want anybody getting any chills. So let's run the heater and have it both on. What was that? No. Nothing. Anyway, I just found I was getting very stuck. I found it hard to breathe properly. Now I feel a little bit better. But I mean, I'm sitting here with a coat on. I don't want people to get chills. All right, so the Rebbe says because the Shorosh and Nishamas Yisrael is Mamish Biatzmusa Yisbora. Boni Matem, like the Alter Rebbe brings in Tanya Perek Beis, that the Shorosh of the Ben is Biatzmus Av, Mamish B'Pnimis V'Atzmius of the Av, and like also he brings down there all the different Mamori Chazal and the different Masholim, but when you get to the Shorosh of the Neshamas how the Mamish Biatzmusa Yisbora. Avamela, since the Neshamas are Ilu, a Gilu, a part of Atzmas Ein Seif Mamish, and therefore they will return to their Shorosh. They'll go back into such a level, they'll go higher even than the Tami HaToiro, and they'll go up through the way that they did in this world, or they will be shotim al pnei hamayim, higher than the water. What that indicates, the makif amiti, even higher than chokhmah, or higher than how the Eibush allows it to be a beginning of the inyan from chokhmah. Shalamayla mipchinas chokhmah the Torah, gam b'shorosh harishon, even in the highest madrega of chokhmah the Torah. So we see from that Kaviyachol, the Eibush wants Yidden, he has a kesher with Yidden even higher than the shorosh of the giving of the Torah. Now, this is a very famous principle that's going to be developed on a bit further as we go along. That the emes is that the highest of all entities is the neshamas, and the neshamas are even higher than Torah in their very shorosh. And nonetheless, we see that the neshamas need the Torah. If they don't have the Torah, they can't get on. So that's because the Eibush put the neshama down here in this world, and the only way that she can be mavara the world and take on the world is through the inyan of of Torah. The Indian of Torah is like the nair of the light at the top of the nair, but the actual nair is the neshamas. Therefore, nair Hashem nishmas Adam. The etzem ability to do everything is the neshama. The nair at the top is the fire at the top of the wick. That is the Torah. That shows the way, and that lights up. If the neshamas don't have that, they don't have the ability to overcome all the tasks, and to overcome the darkness, and to break all the inyanim down here in this world. Avo b'emes b'shorshom yidden are higher than the etzem neshamas are higher than the Torah in their very essence, and that's what we see by the Bilchis and the Suim when you make the brachas by the chuppah. Later in the Sheva brachas, we see the first to the last two brachas. We make a bracha Baruch Atah Hashem, and we say Misameach Choson v'Chalo. The first one we say Misameach Choson, what that's the union from Torah, and afterwards the union of Chalo, what that's the union from Neshamas. That's the union of the Neshamas. So first of all Torah, and then the Neshamas. On the last bracha, that's the big finality of the whole thing, and then we talk about the Yosid, Mahera, Hashem Keinu, Shama B'Yora Yehuda, and Arichas, and then we say Baruch Atah Hashem, Misameach Choson im Hakalo. They were Misameach the Choson with a Kala. So what did you do? You just said before Misameach Choson with Kala. The Choson's higher than the Kala. Was it supposed to now Misameach Choson im Hakalo? Two different ways of looking at it. If you look purely mitzad the Madregas and Inyonim, how they are in the Seder of the world, and the Neshamas are down here, and the Torah comes from a very high level, and therefore the Neshamas need the Torah to guide them. Misameach Choson v'Chalo. But if you go mitzad the emes shoyres and the amitis shoyres, then on the contrary, the Neshamas, they misameach the Torah. They add power and koach into the Torah. Misameach Choson im Hakalo. We misameach the Torah with the Neshamas out there, the Yidden, and that's one of the Pirushim in Simchas Torah, that the Yidden have the ability to be Misameach the Torah. As it brought down in the Kuti Torah, two Pirushim. One is that the Torah is Misameach mid Yidden, and the other Pirush is that the Simchas Torah is that the Yidden are Misameach the Torah. The Yidden make frail the Torah. Favu is because they are really, they're they're really L'mayla Mia Torah. It's just that the way they are, but Golui in the Olam, they need the Indian of Torah. Without Torah, they can't carry out their task. And that's what we're going to see a little bit later on here. The whole Indian of how do you come to these Aliyahs, which are going to be Liyosid, only mitzad a tremendous power what the Neshama have. And we're going to see how the Neshama can reveal that power and what it needs to go through, what it needs to do. Kidei legalis at koyach hatzero. But that's the pitch lines, you might say, that the Neshamis are mushroshim b'pchinas atzmis mamish shelamayla b'pchinas chokma de'era gam b'sherish harishoin. Even the sherish harishoin are the chokma of Torah. Where do we see that? L'kamesha kosu rach b'avisecha choshet Hashem. It's a pasuk in Devarim, but Moshe Rabbeinu says in the name of the Eibishter that only in your forefathers did the Eibishter have a inifah cheshik. What is well known? A cheshik means a rotzen atzmi, how do you call it? An essential pnimistic rotzen. That in your forefathers the Eibishter had this pnimius longing and rotzen, and your forefathers before the Torah was given. So you might say, what was the big cheshik in the Always? You can say that the Eibush had a cheshik in you, but he did it for the sake of to pay a due reward to the Always from the Gan Sarichas, but something we aims that we saw in the Shur Chloe on Thursday night. So the Rebbe says that really the pshat is the Rach B'Avisecha Choshak, that the fact that the Eibush loved the Ovis, he was so devoted to the Ovis, well, that was because they were the beginning, like the Alter Rebbe says in Perek Yud Ches in Tanya, that Avraham Avinu began the whole Gilead, the Neshamas, how they come down the Nefesh Elokis into the Oilamas. That was the beginning of the Indian of the Neshamas, how they are BMS, And therefore the Eibishter loved them with a love, even though they didn't have Torah yet. Lamaisa, I mean, with all the Purushim, but always didn't actually keep the Torah per se. They kept it in Ruchnias, or they weren't actually Makayim the Torah. So you can't say that the whole thing is totally in the infant Torah. The love and the kesher with the Nishamas was even before the Torah was given, and it's even B'pnimias higher than the Indian of the Torah. And that's a pshat, rak ba'avishecha choshach, gam koidim shenitnu lahem ha-Torah choshach Hashem ba'avishecha. And what is choshach? Even before the Torah was given, the Eibusher had this tremendous inner rotten for the forefathers, between his tain and ba'atzmi mamish, shaloi bo adayim between his helm ba'atzmi the chokhmah. And you can't say, oh no, that's because of the helm, it all went down into chokhmah. No, they didn't have the Indian from chokhmah to tell. The way we understand what chokhmah to tell is, they didn't have. Even though, of course, they did learn all sorts of high inyanim, kidu b'negeh to the whole inyan of the base medrash of Shem Va'eva, where Yankov Avinu learned, and Yitzchak, and the Gemara says in Masechet Yuma that Avraham Avinu had his own yeshiva, with the whole arichas like the Rambam brings that Avraham Avinu taught thousands and thousands of people, even though he didn't have internets, and he didn't have even loudspeakers, and he didn't have all the gigos and all the inyanim. Probably it would be better nowadays if most people didn't jeopardize the mit, and they were to keep away from it. For they could still find out everything they need to know, and even more of an extra year. We see that Avraham Avinu taught thousands and thousands. The Rambam says tens of thousands of people. Even though he didn't have the internet, when the ganze arichas, but nonetheless, it wasn't the Inyan from Torah the way we understand it. It was a very high lead up to know what was the Inyan from Chokmas HaTorah. Erafah says the Rebbe, you see that there was a kesher mitzad rotzana achmi, and the Rebbe said not just rotzana achmi but tainu cheshik indicates that, you know, rotzana mitzad tainu. You say you have a cheshik in something when you mamish, it fulfills you tremendously to be busy with that inyan. So that was the kesher with the neshamas of the fathers. That was mamish before the whole inyan from Chokmas HaTorah. Shaloi bo adayim b'chin selam ha'atzmi l'chom didn't come into that level of the gilui of Chokhmah at all yet. So that's where the shorish of the neshamas are. That the shorish is beyond and transcendent even to the union of Chokmas HaTorah, how it is b'shor harishoy. Olazois yisalu liosid, and therefore the neshamas are going to have a tremendous aliyah. Liosid lebchinas umadrege zu, to that union of shotim al pnei hamayim, where they'll be involved and nichlal in the tainug atzmi aposhet of the atzmas ein seif, and that's as also tainug. We can't really picture it, and we can't describe it in our terms. We can only know that there's going to be a zaminin. Is it the Rebbe, it's brought down in other places that after a certain level there's not going to be any more aliyahs. It's a matter here. It would appear that there's a kaseda with aliyahs, but it was this. Then they have shatim al pnei hamayim, so in that gufa it appears that there'll be more aliyahs. So the Rebbe said, "Mashili osid lo yiyeh oid aliyahs." Whatever, there's not going to be any more aliyahs. What to say is mashmer. In certain places in Chassidus, that there won't be any more aliyahs. I know, kasher yisalu p'chinas tainu va'atzmi v'yichyu lifonov, like Yosha over his maramas, that they'll be living mamish in atzmas ein seif v'yichyu lifonov mamish. Avamir, they'll be called so much in this madrege the atzmas mamish and the tainu v'kol in the atzmas, that they won't be shaykh anymore aliyahs, because you'll already be high. You'll be kaviyah one thing with the Eibush, and you'll be living directly from his atzmas, and well, you can't go any higher than that. He says no shaykh the from aliyah. So come to us, Rafi said it's going to be a sort of a einochanami, a menucha l'chayei. That's a little bit sounds a little bit sort of odd to the Hasidic hira. So therefore, of course, the Rebbe Melech Mashiach moves in here, as you might say, and there's a famous point that the Rebbe makes in one of his, I think it's in one of the Siyumim that the Rebbe made on the Rambams, on the Rambam, rather, not the Rambams, on the Rambam. There's a Siyumim that the Rebbe made on the Rambam. Is in over there, the Rebbe says that what the Rebbe Rashab says, there won't be any aliyah, is the osid. He means it won't be aliyah, is where you'll be going, completely out of madrega. It's not yet the atmos into higher, and then eventually you go into the atmos. But he said, once you're in the atmos, then there will of course be aliyahs, belishiyah, because in the atmos there's no chance to say there's one madrega, but that gufa will be manucha l'chayei hoilomim, and the aliyahs will just be, without going from not into the atmos to the atmos, you'll just be in the atmos going the whole time, and that will be called not an aliyah, because normally what we understand by the word aliyah means you go from not inside the atmos into the atmos. Once you reach the atmos, then you've reached it. Yeah, but inside the atmos, there's going to be going on all these amazing aliyahs without kilo going out from one state into another. You'll just be sort of, as it were, experiencing new inyonim in a form of what you might call an endless spiral within the reshus of the Eibishter's atmos. I say, break the Rebbe, the be'erach. I mean, that's be'erach l'shein ha'toher. Omer Rafisa, that's miyashiv. That the chassid would say to himself, "What do you mean to tell me there'll be a point where there won't be any more years? I mean, everybody just be kilo, holy, not supposed to be pork and that. What sort of a state is that? Chassid is a restless entity. He always wants new inyanim and aliyahs and more aliyahs and more aliyahs. So the Rebbe settles that one. The Rebbe said, there will be aliyah, but not in the way we understand aliyahs, because normally aliyah means you're not in it and you go up into it. He said, there you'll be in it, period, but in it there'll be all sorts of amazing new forms of aliyah, but not in the normal sense of the word aliyah. So if that puts it right, then ma'atoi. But the ikah is, we say, let's get moving, and we'll work all these things out once we got them. But Khaled, that we're still talking, all this is going to be, and it's the Yossi, then the Nishamas are getting a bit, weary, and they're saying, Adma Sai, let's start off on all this Seder, and then we'll work it out, there'll be an Aliyah, and there'll be another Aliyah, and then there'll be a further Aliyah, and that'll be, freiliche problems. It'll be very, very amazingly high madreged problems that Yidden will be very thrilled and tremendously fulfilled to deal with those problems. Of the type of problems that we got now is no Yidden want to have anything to do with those sort of problems anymore. No, they're all saying Adma Sai. Abba Mele, says the Rebbe, Al Pise Yuvan, according to this, that there'll really be two aliyahs. That there'll be first of all, the aliyah that they will have immediately through Tchias HaMeisim into the Elam Ha'atzmi of Chochmah, and then there'll be Shatim Al Pnei Hamayim, that'll be higher than that, and then eventually an aliyah into Atzmas. Says the Rebbe, according to that, we'll understand the Medrashish Chalukos, the Inyan Elam Haba. It's well known. There are two different statements of our sages in reference to what it's going to be like in the world to come, meaning after Tchias HaMeisim. The Medrash Echad, that the Medrash in Vayikra Rabbah, well-known Medrash, it's brought down in L'Kutei Torah, and the Alter has got a very interesting bracketed remark about that whole thing. It's written, Sheyash HaKadosh Baruch Hu Su'udah, that David's going to make a Su'udah. Now, the Rebbe doesn't go into the details here of what's going to be the feast, but it's brought down over there that it's going to be what they call the wild shur, the shur Habar. There's going to be the Leviosan, how do you call it, how do you say Leviosan? The Wim? Whale? No. Leviathan, whatever that means. Whatever exactly the Leviathan is, but he's going to be an amazing, and he does have these, how do you call them, like snapurin, he's got these type of sharp wings, they've got sharp edges on them. Fins. But he's got these very sharp fins. So it's written over there, very pillar dikazach, that he's going to slaughter the Shur Abba with his fins. Now that's not a kosher shechita. And therefore the Medrash itself asks the kasha, shechita zu muteres, question mark. So there's a famous statement over there that also the Kodesh Baruch Hu, sheteichi memenu Torah chadosha, al tikri Torah chadosha, el chidush Torah, that the Abish is going to be matir of that shechita. So the Alter has got a whole big thing in the Kuchita. How come? So you guys are learning shechita, should look it up over there. It's good square for you guys. That the Abish is going to be matir that shechita when boy man, that can't possibly, because since it's got these what do you call it? These big how do you call it? Hefsek in the evening. So it's only korea. It's not choisech. So therefore, it's not a emes shechita. Nonetheless, the Abish is going to be matir that, and everybody, all the tzaddikim are going to sit down, and they're going to have a tremendous suda together with the Abish from this Shur Abba, which is being slaughtered by the Leviathan. So the Alter Rebbe's got a whole thing, and there's all sikha from the Rebbe. No, none of the Rebbe really once dealt with this whole thing in a great detail. You'll find also other inyanim that are going to be liosi different than what they are now, and we have a klal that Torah can never alter, and so the Rebbe deals with all inyan. There's no real kasha on these inyanim, mitzad the fact that the Torah can't alter, etc., etc. And as far as some of the Mefoshe Medrash over there, they learn very interestingly. They say that Osir HaKadosh Baruch Hu Lahati Shechita Zu Rak Lefi Shor. They say it's going to be a special union that the Abish is going to take on himself, that you be able to eat that shechita, but it's only going to be just for that moment. Or even in the world, it's amazing. After that, it's not going to be mutter as a shechita. See, that's what they learn. But the Rebbe learns that that's a little bit bedeigig to learn, and says, big Indian from the Rebbe Ben Ager, let's say. Anyway, there's going to be a suda, and therefore, fortunately for you guys, the Rebbe avoids the whole details of the whole shechita, he says there's going to be a suda. In other words, it's going to be like a tainug, which has got to do with a Indian shell suda. What a suda means is you're being misanik from something. In the Gemara, well, that's oddly that the really high madreg is mentioned in the Gemara. But Gemara Isa, the Ilam Abo, Ein Boy, Lo Yachila V'Lo Yisha, Siyah, what is the Gemara Masechta Brachos? Well, the Gemara says that the Osid Love, there won't be no eating and no drinking at all. Ela, the Gemara says over there, Tzadikim Yeshvim, they'll be sitting with Treiseim Barot, Shehem, and have their crowns on their heads. V'nenim mizivha shechina. They will live only from the ziv of the shechina. They won't need to take anything into their systems or anything like that. That one is sharp. Yeah, it's well known. The famous quip of the Chassidim. Once again, the Chassidim say, "Well, you just sit with your crown, you know, the whole time. What's going to be with the tankim, with the." You guys don't appreciate the quips. So they give the Chassidics which drive around, they'll be holding their crowns, you know, have them tied on with an elastic, and they'll be driving the tanks, and they say, "We want atzmas." What's up, this Giluya? We want atzmas now, etc., etc. Probably every now and then they'll have to stop for a moment to polish their crowns because they've got a bit dusty with running around, etc., etc. But anyway, the Gemara says that there won't be any eating. So ask yourself the Shaila, either there's going to be a suda or there won't be any eating at all. So some people want to say, well, it'll be two different things. There'll be a suda at the beginning, and then afterwards there won't be anything anymore. But the Rebbe doesn't want to go for that. It's mashma that if there's going to be eating, it's going to be shaykh the whole inyan from eating. If it's not going to be shaykh the whole inyan from eating, that's not going to be. You can't kilo in the madrega of the yachra. It's amazing. You can't have your cake and eat it too. If you have cake, then it's going to be a very special form of cake. If you're not going to have it, then you can't have it. How is it that both things can be true? So the Rebbe is going to say that it's two inyanim, that that's what is Leviyazin, that's one aliyah. And afterwards it's going to be another inyan and another aliyah. Well, that's what we saw, the two aliyahs on the part of the tzaddikim, liyotzid. So we'll leave you in the slightly tantalizing situation to work out what are those two aliyahs, how do they relate to Asuda and Lailami. Asuda is what we'll see about that in future and developing and progressing episode. Now, just one brief remark on a much more slightly mundane type of level, that I saw the list of attendance at the Siddur in the mornings,